Hi guys, it's Matt from Maxon UK here, and in this video we are going to be looking at BodyPaint and creating a game asset using the painting tools within it. Now BodyPaint is its own separate entity away from Cinema 4D, but it does contain a lot of the useful tools, particularly the modelling sort of side, as well as the ability of painting and sculpting as well, which is really useful. So this is my startup location. As you can see, it's a little bit different to what we're used to. But if I just go up to my layout, I will be able to change it to, sort of like the standard Cinema 4D layout. And that's what we're used to using, but this is all within BodyPaint, okay? So this isn't Cinema 4D as such. This is BodyPaint 3D. So what we're going to do, we are going to look at just using BodyPaint to create a simple game object. And the first thing I'm going to create is a cube, and that's pretty much it. Okay, that is what I am going to start with, and I'm not really going to do much more to it than that other than start with our cube. The one thing that I would like to do to it, however, is to give it a certain wood texture. So I'm going to look in our content browser, and at the moment if I go to my presets, you can see I've got the BodyPaint 3D stuff. Okay, so this should be the sort of like the basic things, and I'm just going to do a search for wood there, and we've got a whole load of stuff that will enable the sculpting and things, but I want wooden planks. I think that's what I would like to go for. So let's just have a little bit of a quick look. Yeah, there we go. I want one of these. Okay, and if I just open that in, yeah, you go. You can see that that is in the brick shader for the BodyPaint, so really quite nice, comes with that already. So I'm just going to create myself this texture, okay, and then I'm going to tweak it slightly because I want this to be a sort of like a wooden box. I don't want it to have this sort of slat in the middle, so I'm just going to nip into my texture and I'm going to edit that really quickly. So if I just zero that out, or I think it was 1, there we go. Now it looks like a sort of wooden box, which is absolutely fine for me. And now I'm going to use BodyPaint to paint the rest of the texture on to give it all of the nice sort of metal textures and bumps and things like that. Okay, now I've got a starting point. What I'm going to do, because I've got my material on there, I am going to bake out my object. So with my object selected, I'm going to bake my object. I'm just going to choose a bigger size than that, just in case, just to make sure that I've got everything that I need. And at this point it's where you could choose something like a Photoshop file. So if you want to easily take it into Photoshop and update it there, but the whole point of this is that I can show you that Cinema 4D's BodyPaint will do it for us. So I want a single texture, I want to keep my UVs, I want to replace my object. It asks for a path name, so where is it going to put this? I'm going to be really lazy and put it on my desktop. Okay, and then I'll click bake. And then kaboom. Okay, so very little has changed, marvellously, which is kind of what I wanted, except that my cube is no longer a parametric object, so it's been made editable. And this time my texture is made of an image, as you can see, the cube surface color.tiff, as opposed to the procedural brick texture. So we change our layout, okay, and I'm going to the BodyPaint UV edit layout. You can see that we've got our UVs here and we have our object, and now we need to get it ready to paint on. So if I just go to my paint tool, I can't do anything at the moment. So I need to run the paint setup wizard. So click it and you can see that we've got the choice of objects or materials. If I go to the materials, I'm going to choose cube, okay, and untick wooden planks because that was the original material, but I don't want to be dealing with that. I only want to be dealing with the cube here. And then go to next. Automatically it has recalculate UV, but I want to untick that because I'm quite happy with the UV that this has, and I want it to apply the same thing to all of the sides. So then I shall just move on from that. I'm happy with those settings and click next. And then what I need to do is add in a couple of the other channels that I want to use, which is bump and will be reflectance. Okay, so we should already have color. So what I'll do is I will click finish. Okay, there we go. And now, again, very little has changed, but if I go to my materials here, you can see that I now have all 3 channels here ready to be able to be used. So the color channel contains the image that I have already. I then have a reflectance channel and a bump channel. So just click close to that. I'm just going to remove this because I no longer want it. Okay, and then we're going to start editing our cube here. So I'm going to change my layout once again, and I'm going to go to the 3D paint tool, and that just gives me a bigger window to use. So what I can now do is, you can see I can paint on one surface and it will apply it all the way through to the others. And if I look at the texture, if I just go to cube surface color, there you go, you can see that I have that now applied all the way across. That isn't particularly what I want, but nonetheless you can see that that's what that does. So with my brush and stuff, and I can choose a variety of brushes. So if I just go to my brush tool, there are, if you go up to the brush tool and click, you can see I've got loads of different types of things. Some are going to be more useful than others. Anything from some sort of stone texture, and you can see that it just maps itself straight across. But what I really want is some form of metal texture. Now that would be really useful. So if I just have a look at this one, there we go, look, there we go, metal JPEG, and I can draw that across and that will give a nice metal texture. Now that's a bit haphazard, isn't it? So what I can do is undo that, and I can use my texture view, okay, and I can use this brush to give me some sort of control. So I've got some shapes that I could use, and at the moment it will create a circle of metal, which is okay but not really what I want. Whereas what I really want is a rectangle. Now the center will create one, smack bang in the middle using that, but what I really want to use is a box. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to create that texture all the way around, because that's going to be my metal texture. Didn't like where that's placed, so I'm going to put that in between those planks, and then I'm going to use that to roughly square that off. And you can see that because it's a UV map, it tiles, so it's gone the other side, so I only need to just add in a little bit of where I think that's going to match up. There you go. So that's in the color channel, and if I just have a look back, there you go, you can see that that's applied itself all the way around, which is quite nice. So what I need to do now is start perhaps working on the bump map here. So as you can see, I've got the 3 channels that I made, so my color channel, my reflection and my bump. At the moment I've got this selected, so this means that I can paint through 2 of my channels, or multiple channels at once. It isn't really what I want to be doing at the moment. And if I just have a look at my bump map texture, you can see that it's still completely grey, so that's absolutely fine for me. Now what I need to do is sort of make it bumpy really, and that's really done through the colours. So if I grab my paintbrush, then what I should be able to do is just say increase the colour there, and what that means, just click on that to say that I'm going to be working on the layer. So what I do is, for this I will add in another layer, I think. So go to my layers, and I have added in this here. It just allows me to sort of work on things if I particularly want to. And you can see that if I just paint, I get this little white squiggle, and if I look at my texture, there's the white squiggle, and it's now having an effect on that area. So looking in the 3D view, you can see there is something there, but what I'll do, I'll just go to my materials, and I will just increase that bump strength so you can see that that is in fact having an effect. So not exactly what I particularly want it to be doing, but nonetheless it is having an effect. So what I want to do now, let's just have a look at that. Yeah, so just undo again. I will be adding in sort of like giving this some form of depth. So probably the easiest way of doing it is to go to one of my side views. Okay, and I've already got it set it to my display. I'm going to go to my bump. I will need to just make sure that I'm on that layer, and then I will use my rectangular tool, and I will add in the white things up over, and hopefully we will see that it works. Now you won't see anything in this view, but we will just need to check the texture that that's working and that's doing what I want. So I'm just mapping those up to the edge of my metal texture so that we get that sense of squareness under the 3D view. So there we go, and now I just need to go back to my material so that I can increase my bump again, because I did, remove it. And there we go, we've got a little bit of a bump texture there. What I might actually do is just go to my texture here, and I'm gonna make that black instead. So hopefully we will see a bit better. Oh no. I want to make sure that the texture is going to be black. And also with my box, I've got a little bit of feathering. So rather than being a complete, stop between one and the other, or step in fact, I'm going to add in a little bit of feathering that should allow a nice little bit of a gradient to give the hint that that metal texture is bending inwards as opposed to breaking. I don't think that's enough, so maybe go for a 6. Okay, there we go, and we've got a little bit of feathering around the outside. So now if I go to my 3D view, you can see we get a little bit of sense that that is now bending inward. But what about adding in a little bit more interesting detail to the outer rim to make it look like it's a bit more battered? Okay, so as I have used some other textures and brushes and stuff before, let's see what we've got available. So let's find a nice brush, and there should be some interesting brushes here that we might be able to use. I mean, we've got stuff like that, which might work, and we can increase and decrease the brush size using the square brackets. And if I just start painting those in, you can see that I've left myself on that channel, whereas I don't really want to be on there. I only want to be on the bump, and I'm going to lower my texture there so that it adds in that detail. You can see that that does start to make it look a little bit bumpy. And you can see if I add in all of that. Maybe I want to choose a little bit more of an interesting brush, so if I just undo, make sure there's nothing left on my texture of that, and then let's see what I can find. You want something that's got sort of a lot of detail in it, a lot of little pitty bits, which would be quite good. So maybe something like that. I don't know if it will make a difference. Again, don't leave yourself on that channel. I only want to be working on that one. There we go. That's a little bit more interesting. So you can sort of paint that on, or you can work your way through and layer that up, and you can see that because it's in 3D and working with BodyPaint is so much fun that I can just work my way around. I should have really started another layer there, so what I'll undo is undo that, and I shall just add myself a new layer and show you another tip. So if I just increase that brush size a little bit more, if I hold down shift when I click, if I click once there and click in that second corner, you can see that it adds a line straight across, and then if I hold down shift again, it adds it to it, and again, and back to where I started. And really quickly that's worked its way all the way around there, adding in some roughs and buffs and things like that. Now you can go into more detail if you want, or you can go into little individual nicks and stuff, but for the moment I'm just going to leave it like that. That's absolutely fine for me. But I am going to create another layer, and I'm going to look at what we can do to get some more interesting wood lines going on in there. So what I'm going to do is just, let's choose a brush that's going to give a lot of nice sort of strokes to kind of get that wood grain effect. Just use the keyboard shortcuts to increase and decrease. So make sure that my colour is up and that I am only using the one channel. Okay, I don't really want to be working on the colour channel on this one. I want to make sure that I am only working on here. I'm just going to give that a little go. And there you go. It's ever so fast in just adding in that little bit more detail. And you can kind of, ribbon it effect if you want to just add in, you know, some nice effects onto that. Okay, and there we go, and there we go, and it works its way across. So that's on its own separate layer. And what I can do just really quickly is, if I turn those off because I don't want them to be affecting, you know, what this is, I can just take them on here, and then I can just press delete and get rid of them. And that way I know that they are not going to interfere with the look of the edges. So there we go. Oh, there we go. So selecting and delete. And then if I go back to my 3D view, there we go, we've got our bumps there, all giving in some nice interesting effects to our little wooden box here. Now we have one last channel that we need to have a look at, and that is our reflectance channel. Okay, so that's at the moment is going to be controlling our specular. So we can control how shiny some of these little areas are. So it's very similar. I'm just going to make sure that I'm on my background there, and I'm going to create a new layer, and that's what I'm going to be adding in. So very similar to the way I did the bump to start with, I'm going to be drawing in where I want the reflection or the shininess specular to be working on, and that's going to be on these squares here. So on my other views, okay, so I've got that side on, that isn't my texture view. Just going to make sure that I'm on my right channel. Okay, there we go, and untick the bump there. So make sure that I'm only on there, and then I'm going to draw my box. And there you go, you can see that instantly becomes slightly more shiny. And then all four parts are done. Perfect. So now going back to 3D, if I just move around, you can see that that now has a sort of slightly shiny, reflective, well, shiny edge to it, which is cool. Now Cinema 4D has some good little Photoshop style tools in it as well, so if you need to edit or manipulate the image. For example, I think that this wood is a little bit too light for the sort of battered box that this is going to be. So if I just go to my color channel, make sure that that's the only one I'm editing, I don't want to be on multi-brush at the moment, and then go to my layers, I'm going to use my burn tool, which is very similar to what you would find in, you know, Photoshop. Make sure that I'm on shadows, and then I can just, you know, ever so slightly edit this and make it a lot darker, okay, which is quite a nice way of just sort of roughing up some bits. And you've got, you know, the nice sort of chance to wear certain parts out just by making them, you know, darker and moving them around. You can increase and decrease the size of the brush if you have particular areas that you want to, you know, sort of wear out a little bit more, and you can see already that this feels a little bit more interesting. You can of course obviously do it to the metal texture as well if you want little bits to become darker, you know, around the edges or something, or maybe add in some, you know, lighter burnt bits, maybe using the, you know, the burn tool, dodge tool, sorry, and decrease, and then maybe you can just give yourself some, you know, sort of highlights. Maybe that's a bit too much, so just, you know, wear it out a little bit, wear out the edges so that it's not quite the same color, and it will just add in a whole load of more interesting detail that makes your cube, you know, feel a little bit more like it's wearing out. Now to finish it off, let's add in some text. So Cinema 4D has a text tool very similar to what you'd expect to find in, you know, all of the other programs, and you can just choose what it is that you want to say. So for example, I'm going to call it heavy, and then you can select a font. Okay, so you just go in and then you can choose the font that you want to work with. I'm going to stick with my impact that I happen to be on, and then you can choose its size. So I'm just going to go to my side view. Now you can choose to whether or not, if you click, you can move the font, okay, and it will place itself down, or you can choose whether or not you can rotate the font, so be careful where you put it. So I'm just going to go to my colors because I want my font to be a nice sort of red, you know, very big sort of warning type font, which is absolutely fine. Then I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to add in a new layer because I might want to edit and adjust it, and then I'm going to pick a size because 24 doesn't seem big enough at the moment. So if I, you know, move that in Okay, that sort of works, but isn't exactly where I want, or what I want. So let's try a different size. Make sure that you're working obviously only on your color layer, definitely on its layer. And now let's try shoving that across. So yeah, I quite like that, but I'm not going to have it there. What I might do is just lower that, and you've got a little bit of chance to add in, you know, move stuff around if you want. So maybe I should do that and plonk that in right smack bang in the middle, which is okay. Now I could add in some feathering as well, which I might do, so that it doesn't look quite so clean and crisp. Boom. There you go. Well, maybe it's a bit too much feathering, so let's just try 4. Okay, there we go. There we go, and it looks like it's been sprayed a little bit. So now going back to my 3D scene, there you go, you can see that we've got the ripples of the wood still on there, and we have our painted cube there in, you know, no time whatsoever. Obviously you guys can spend some time adding in some more details or cleaning stuff up and things like that, but you know, this gives you the basic premise to be able to use BodyPaint to create, you know, simple game assets like this, which you can then export by going to File, Export, and exporting as an FBX file, which should be read by your chosen game engine. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe or check out blog.maxon.co.uk.